Greetings all, and welcome to the 53rd episode of TM Tentacle Movement. For today, we'll be looking at the Fake Out, Facade, Smelling Salts and Spin Up attacks, and the Stockpile, Swallow, Follow Me, Helping Hand, Wish, and Assist techniques. Much as the name might suggest, the Fake Out attack involves usually getting very close to the opposition before suddenly frightening them either by clapping their front limbs together forcefully or lightly sucker punching them. The Fake Out attack, like the Rapid Spin attack and others, is not specifically designed to inflict direct damage, but for a different purpose altogether, and in this case, it's making the opponent flinch. The Fake Out attack is, oddly enough, a move seen in use among humans, in particular traditional sumos, as it generally involves the user loudly clapping their hands together right in the face of the opposition. For Pokémon unable to do so, an improvised sucker punch usually does the trick as well. This distraction is designed to stun the opponent enough that they physically flinch and become unable to counterattack for a short period of time until the next turn of battle comes around. The light damage that the move does as a consequence makes it quite useful for weakening opponents even before they can start to fight, and can give weaker Pokémon a major advantage in battle, especially since the attack can strike before any other move can be executed, even if the opponent has a move like Extreme Speed ready to be used. There is, however, one slight catch to the attack. The sudden shocker fright that comes along with the attack only actually works if used at the very beginning of a battle. So although the attack can generally strike more quickly than other regular moves, it can only be expected to work if used at the very beginning of a fight. Even so, as a defensive wrecking tactic, this move can easily make life frustrating for others, even though it is obviously unaffected by items like the King's Rock, and make it difficult for the opponent to get their head back in the game after being so rudely disrupted. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the Fake Out attack. Armor can, however, help reduce or negate the damage dealt by the attack. The Fake Out attack might be great for screwing with the opposition right at the beginning of a battle, but the fact that it only works at the very beginning of a battle can make it a little more than a slight nuisance as long as your Pokémon aren't already badly hurt or are otherwise protected against flinching. In essence, the Facade attack is a temperamental strike against the opponent that derives its power from the user's overall state of being, in particular regarding any present status afflictions. Under most circumstances, the attack will only be a fairly moderate close-quarter strike with about the same damage potential as a slash attack but with no other special features, aside from being unaffected by items like King's Rocks. When the user is afflicted with a stable status condition that does not completely incapacitate them, however, namely being poisoned, burned, or paralyzed, their body will send out a massive distress signal to the brain and alert it to the danger posed. When used under these situations, the Facade attack will use that emergency signal to excite the user's muscles and cause them to lunge out at much greater force while using the same amount of stamina, in turn doubling the attack's base power and additionally negating the decrease in attack brought on by a burn. While this simple feature might only be applicable in the right circumstances, this can certainly make the Facade attack a wicked blow that can prove to be a more than effective anti-status weapon against tactically minded opponents. It was for this reason that Silph Co decided to release the move as TM42 within the 3rd generation line of TMs, from which it has gained much popularity and has been reproduced within all successive generations, including the recent Sinnoh Special Edition set, only becoming TM39 in the 8th generation line and TM25 in the 9th generation line as a numerical change. Due to its unique attributes and varied execution style, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the Facade attack. Strong armor in general can help reduce or negate the damage dealt by the attack, but weaker armor is unlikely to perform as well without sustaining critical damage or failing altogether when the attack is at maximum power. The Facade attack is a great all-purpose move that can deal decent damage under normal conditions and devastating damage under special situations, so it is more than likely to be seen among a wide variety of opponents. As such, the only thing that can be done to reduce its effectiveness, aside from using Pokémon with sturdy defenses, is to make sure that you don't accidentally or purposefully poison, burn, or paralyze the opponent and in turn fully power up the attack. Considered to be the signature attack of the Makuhita family, the Smelling Salt attack involves forcefully striking an opponent with paralysis curing smelling salts to inflict damage. The Smelling Salt attack is a truly bizarre attack that is seemingly derived not from actual function, but merely coincidence. Unlike other Pokémon, the members of the Makuhita family release a unique mixture of chemicals from their bodies when they sweat that, when mixed with a bit of dirt or fine-grained sand, can cause liquid to crystallize and form natural smelling salts. However, these smelling salts are special because they do not wake others up. They cure paralysis. This is not to the individual's favor, however, as the restorative process involves a painful chemical reaction that can inflict considerable physical trauma in practice. Under normal conditions, the damage dealt by this attack will simply be from a Makuhita Hariyama forcefully thrusting the smelling salt straight into an opponent's skin. If the opponent is paralyzed, however, the chemical reaction will come into play and will deal significantly more damage in the process, effectively doubling the base power of the move. On the downside, this attack will also then cure the paralysis and is unaffected by items like King's Rocks, but that certainly doesn't take away from the fact that, in the right circumstances, this move can easily prove to be a devastating secret weapon that few trainers will be able to handle properly. Due to its unique properties, there is no general rule for how to directly counter or dodge the smelling salts attack, as at least some damage will always be dealt if the target is initially paralyzed. Strong armor in general can, however, help reduce negative damage dealt by this attack, but weaker armor is unlikely to perform as well without sustaining critical damage or failing altogether when the attack is at maximum power. The smelling salts attack is certainly not powerful enough on its own to be a major threat in battle, but considering what it could potentially do to paralyze Pokemon, the only reliable course of action that can be taken to partially counteract its effectiveness is to ensure that your Pokemon do not get paralyzed. Much as the name might suggest, the stockpile technique involves users stockpiling energy internally in order to prepare itself for a swallow or spit up move. The stockpile, swallow, and spit up moves are all designed to work with one another in tandem to not only keep the user protected against damage and healthy, but to also inflict decent damage against an opponent. The stockpile technique is the beginning of this relationship and involves users stockpiling large amounts of energy in either a metabolic or mechanical form internally in order to ready the use of either the swallow or spit up moves. As a consequence of gathering energy in such large quantities, the user's body becomes more resistant against direct damage, and thus its defense and special defense stats are raised. While this can make the stockpile technique alone a great defensive move to have around, it is limited in that the user can only use it 3 times consecutively before it becomes unable to stockpile more energy without damaging its body in the process. The number of times the stockpile technique is used before the user utilizes a swallow or spit up move will further determine how effective each of those moves are, and once either move has been used, the energy will disappear and the user will lose the stat benefits it had initially gained from the technique. This can oftentimes make them little more than a tactic for buying time in most cases, but if used properly, this can still be more than enough to ready a tremendous blow against the opposition when a swallow or spit up move is used to put the energy into action. Attacks and techniques that raise a Pokemon's attack or special attack stats, or lower an opponent's defense and special defense stats, are highly recommended for dealing with the stockpile technique, though it is possible to just wait for the opposition to use a swallow or spit up move to remove that technique's added stat benefits altogether. As the name might suggest, the spit up attack involves users spewing out stockpiled energy in the form of a massive blast in order to inflict damage. As noted before, the stockpile, swallow, and spit up moves are all designed to work with one another in tandem to not only keep the user protected against damage and healthy, but to also inflict decent damage against an opponent. After stockpiling energy, the user of a spit up attack will forcefully expel the gathered energy outward in the form of a massive energy blast that strikes nearby targets with devastating force. Depending upon how much energy was stockpiled preceding the use of the move, the actual base power of the spit up attack will vary. If the user has used stockpile once, spit up will have a base power of 100. If it has been used twice, its base power will be 200, and if the move has been used the maximum 3 times, its base power will be 300, making it the most powerful normal type attack available to a Pokemon. Even at lower stockpile levels, this attack can easily deal massive damage to most types of opponents, and can practically obliterate anything in the user's path after 2 or 3 uses, so to say that a spit up attack is a devastating weapon would be understating the fact. Granted, the move might be completely pointless unless the user has already used stockpile at least once, but for most trainers, keeping that fact at the forefront of their minds is easy enough to make any beast with this move and stockpile a lethal force on the battlefield. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter or dodge the spit up attack. Strong armor in general can, however, help reduce negative damage dealt by the attack, though weaker armor is unlikely to perform as well without sustaining critical damage or failing altogether. The spit up attack may be hindered by the fact that it takes a considerable amount of time to prepare, but considering how much damage the move is capable of in most situations, it can certainly be said that only the strongest of defenses will be able to withstand the force of the blow at full strength. Similar to the last 2 entries, the swallow technique involves user ingesting or otherwise absorbing stockpiled energy in an attempt to heal itself. Once more, the stockpile, swallow, and spit up moves are all designed to work with one another in tandem to not only keep the user protected against damage and healthy, but to also inflict decent damage against an opponent. After stockpiling energy, the user of a swallow technique essentially does exactly that. It ingests or otherwise absorbs the gathered energy into its physical structure and uses it to repair damaged body parts and tissue. Depending upon how much energy the user has stockpiled, the amount of maximum health restored will vary. If the user has used stockpiled once, Swallow will recover 25% of the user's maximum HP. If it has been used twice, Swallow will recover 50%, and if the moon has been used the maximum 3 times, it will recover 100%. The fact that the Swallow technique is virtually worthless without the Stockpile technique is of little consequence in most cases, as using Stockpile even once can at least allow the Swallow technique to recover minor injuries. In the context of professional battles, this can easily serve to annoy an offensively minded opponent, as the defenses offered by the Stockpile technique can allow the user to safely survive otherwise lethal blows until a decent Swallow technique can be used to fully restore its state of health. Unless recovery techniques are somehow blocked, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Swallow technique. As its name illustrates, the Follow Me technique involves users somehow distracting or angering all nearby opponents in such a way as to direct all incoming attacks towards themselves. The Follow Me technique is little more than a slight distraction intended to force all attention from nearby opponents to be focused on the user. This is usually done either by taunting the opponent, making them angry in some fashion, or otherwise forcing them to focus on one target and only one target, in turn allowing all nearby teammates to avoid being attacked for a short period of time. The Follow Me technique can usually be performed before most other moves, and can thus enable a struggling teammate to recover their energy, otherwise deliver a devastating blow with an attack like Focus Punch without fear of messing up. The only drawback to this move is that it cannot protect against attacks from opponents outside the user's range, and will essentially end if the user faints before the end of a turn, but otherwise, it is an interesting move that can make the few speeds able to learn it at least somewhat valuable beyond the actual combat capabilities. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Follow Me technique, aside from simply using a move that can target multiple opponents or only targets your Pokémon. In essence, the Helping Hand technique involves user using some sort of energy to help power up a nearby ally and increase the overall power of the next attack. The Helping Hand technique is primarily designed to assist allies in battle at the expense of some of the user's own stamina. With the Helping Hand technique, the user uses, again, some sort of energy, whether it be electrical, mechanical, or some other form, to rally for a nearby ally and temporarily power them up and increase the overall strength in battle. While this boost in power won't last any more than a minute or two at most, it will nonetheless increase the base power of that ally's next attack by 50%, and thus potentially enable it to deal a devastating blow that would otherwise be unable to defeat an opponent. The move might have absolutely no use outside of a multi-Pokemon battle, and might be effectively useless for both involved parties if the targeted ally uses Helping Hand as well, although two side allies can still use Helping Hand on the same central partner in a triple battle and have the effect stacked. But for a quick boost in battle without wasting time to attack, this move can certainly help the best members of a team pull off the impossible, while the weaker member loses little aside from stamina, which might explain why it was turned into TM41 in Silphclef's 8th generation line of TMs and TRs, and then TM130 within the 9th generation line of TMs. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Helping Hand technique. In effect, the Wish technique involves generating an unstable but potent ball of soothing energy that destabilizes and releases its contents upon a Pokémon a short time later. The Wish technique is believed to be a primitive variation of the basic Recover technique and grants the same benefits with a longer preparation time. In a Wish technique, as stated, the user generates a ball of energy that floats around them for a short period of time before it finally destabilizes and releases its contents onto the user, facilitating rapid cellular growth and restoring up to 50% of their maximum HP. However, this move does not carry the same benefits of other recovery techniques because it takes time for the move to reach its final stage. In fact, the actual benefits of a Wish technique will not occur until at least a full turn after its generation. If a trainer chooses to switch out the Pokémon before the technique is completed, the move's effects, however, will still take place on the user. If, however, the user is knocked out before the move can be completed, the Wish will destabilize completely and simply vanish. This can make the move quite temperamental and difficult to pull off efficiently, but for younger Pokémon that otherwise have no access to recovery moves, this can at least give them the opportunity to hopefully preserve their health among longer battles. Unless recovery techniques are somehow blocked or the user is defeated before the move can take its full effect, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the Wish technique. As the name might suggest, the assist technique calls for an individual to utilize whatever little mental power it may have to hurriedly assist itself and others by mimicking a move known by another teammate. The assist technique can almost be thought of as a weaker version of the infamous metronome technique in execution. The true mechanics of the assist technique are a relative mystery, but the move is apparently one triggered out of desperation when few other options are left. The move calls for the user to utilize what little mental power it may have to search the thoughts and memories of teammates in a party in the hopes of finding a move that will help them get out of whatever desperate situation they may be in. Unfortunately, because the move is traditionally known by Pokémon that have no natural access to potent psychic abilities, the technique is imperfect and results in a random move being used instead of a particular one. In essence, this means that the move has the same basic limitations as the metronome technique in that there are a number of moves that cannot be naturally accessed by the technique, and it is further limited to the moves known by team members and an entire party. Interestingly enough though, it has been shown in practice that the assist technique is a bit more far-reaching than one would normally suspect, and can even access the moves known by unborn Pokémon still in their eggs. The move might not see much time on the battlefield, but when little else is available, a little bit of luck can certainly make a load of difference in the end. Due to its unique attributes, there is no way to directly counter the effects of the assist technique. That's it for now, but look forward to the next set of moves here on TM Technical Movement. Thank you all for watching this video. It is a great pleasure to share with you all the fruits of my research and all the positives it gives to understanding the wonderful creatures we call Pokémon and how their powers and behaviors function in their world. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more work like it, please give a like, comment, and or subscribe to the channel so you can get regular notifications on when new content is being uploaded. You can also find links to my DeviantArt page, Patreon, and Discord server in the description below. Please, join me on this road to seeing what the world of Pokemon has to share with us, and the many mysteries and wonders that keep us all coming back for more.